At 8:42 a.m. on February 9, 1945, Private Carlito Rodriguez crouched behind a pile of rubble in Manila, watching 300 Japanese Marines fortify the Paco Railroad Station 60 yards ahead. 21 years old, 6 weeks in combat, 0 medals. The Japanese had turned the elegant railway station into a fortress. Machine gun nests surrounded the building. Riflemen occupied foxholes around each gun position. 20mm cannons sat at every corner behind sandbag walls. Inside the main structure, concrete pillbox housed a 37mm gun, heavy mortars. Rodriguez belonged to Company B, 148th Infantry Regiment, 37th Infantry Division. His unit had been fighting through Manila for 6 days. The American advance had pushed the Japanese back, district by district. Now the enemy had concentrated at Paco Station in Plaza de Lao. The station sat in what had been a thriving Japanese neighborhood before the war. The defenders knew every building, every alley, every firing position. Company B had tried to take the station twice already. Both assaults failed. The first attack cost 11 men. The second cost 14 more. Rodriguez had watched medics drag wounded soldiers back across open ground while Japanese machine guns tracked their movement. Most of the wounded died before reaching cover. The problem was simple. The station sat at the end of a 100-yard open field. No cover, no concealment, just flat ground and enemy guns with clear fields of fire. Every approach ended the same way. American soldiers would advance across the field, Japanese guns would open fire, and the assault would collapse. Rodriguez carried a Browning automatic rifle. The BAR weighed 19 pounds loaded. It fired 30 caliber rounds at 500 rounds per minute from a 20-round magazine. In a firefight, the weapon could empty its magazine in 2.5 seconds. Rodriguez had learned to fire in short bursts, 3 to 5 rounds, enough to suppress enemy positions without wasting ammunition. Next to him crouched Private First Class John Rhee, 21 years old, Choctaw Nation, enlisted December 1942 from Pryor, Oklahoma. Rhee also carried a BAR. The two men had been assigned to the same fire team 3 weeks earlier. They worked well together. Rodriguez was aggressive, Rhee was steady. Both were excellent shots. Their platoon had been pinned down for 40 minutes. The platoon leader was deciding whether to request artillery support or pull back. Artillery would destroy the station, but it would also kill civilians still trapped inside surrounding buildings. Manila had a population of over 600,000. Thousands remained caught between American and Japanese lines. Rodriguez studied the station. The Japanese had positioned their heavy weapons to cover the main approaches. But there was a house 60 yards from the objective. Single-story, stone construction, still partially intact. If 2 men could reach that house, they could establish a firing position closer to the station. Close enough to suppress the Japanese guns, close enough to force the defenders to redirect their fire, close enough to give the rest of the platoon a chance to advance. He looked at Rhee. Rhee nodded. Neither man asked permission. They simply moved. This was the rhythm. Fire, drop, move, fire again. Never stay in the same position for more than one burst. Never give the enemy time to zero in. Keep moving, keep shooting, stay alive. Rodriguez spotted movement near the main entrance to the station. A group of Japanese replacements was running from a building behind the station. They were trying to reach the pillboxes at the front of the station. Fresh troops, fresh ammunition. If they reached those positions, the Japanese defense would strengthen significantly. He shouted to Rhee, pointed at the running soldiers. Rhee saw them. Both men opened fire simultaneously. The BAR was designed for exactly this scenario. Suppressive fire against infantry in the open. Rodriguez emptied his magazine in controlled bursts. 5 Japanese soldiers fell. He dropped the empty magazine, slapped in a fresh one, kept firing. Rhee was doing the same. The running soldiers scattered. Some tried to retreat, some tried to continue forward. Most simply fell. When the shooting stopped, more than 40 Japanese Marines lay in the open ground between the rear building and the station. The pillboxes remained unmanned, not while Rodriguez and Rhee controlled this house. Trying to surround the 2 Americans before they could escape, the Japanese squad closed in. Rodriguez swung his BAR toward the threat and pulled the trigger. Nothing. Empty magazine. He dropped the weapon, reached for his belt, and froze. His last magazine was gone. He had fired it during the previous bound. He was out of ammunition, completely dry. Rhee saw the Japanese squad at the same moment Rodriguez did. He was closer to them, maybe 20 yards. He pivoted, brought his BAR up, and fired a burst. 3 Japanese soldiers went down. The others scattered, took cover, and returned fire. Rodriguez watched helplessly as Rhee engaged the squad alone. Rhee fired again. Another Japanese soldier fell. Then the BAR bolt locked back, empty. Rhee dropped to one knee behind a low wall and reached for a fresh magazine. His last magazine. He pulled it from his belt and brought it toward the weapon. A Japanese rifle cracked once.
The single shot was lost in the chaos of the firefight, but Rodriguez saw Reese jerk, saw him drop the magazine, saw him fall sideways against the wall. Rodriguez was running before he even decided to move. He sprinted toward Reese, no weapon, no ammunition, no plan, just the overwhelming need to reach his partner. Bullets snapped past him, one tore through his pack, another hit the ground at his feet. He kept running. He reached Reese 15 seconds later. Reese was still alive, but barely. The bullet had hit him in the chest, high on the right side. Blood was spreading across his uniform. His eyes were open but unfocused. He was trying to speak but no sound came out. His hands were still reaching for the magazine he had dropped, still trying to reload, still trying to fight. Rodriguez grabbed Reese's BAR, found the dropped magazine, loaded it. 20 rounds. He laid down covering fire toward the Japanese squad, keeping them pinned, keeping them from advancing. But he could not carry Reese and fight at the same time. And Reese could not move on his own. The chest wound was too severe, too much blood loss, too much damage. Rodriguez looked back toward American lines. 40 yards away, he could see soldiers from his platoon watching, unable to help. They were pinned down by machine gun fire from the station. Nobody could cross that open ground to reach him. Nobody, except Rodriguez. And Rodriguez could not leave Reese. He was alone with a dying man, 20 rounds of ammunition, and 8 Japanese Marines advancing on his position. Rodriguez looked at Reese. Reese looked back. Something passed between them in that moment, an understanding. Reese's hand moved slightly, not reaching for Rodriguez, but pushing him away. Go. Get out. Live. Rodriguez knew what he had to do. Staying meant both of them would die. Leaving meant Reese would die alone, but Rodriguez might survive. It was not a choice, it was mathematics. Cold battlefield mathematics. 1 death or 2. Save what you can, accept what you cannot change. He fired a burst at the advancing Japanese, forced them behind cover. Then he stood, turned toward American lines, and ran. He did not look back, could not look back. Every part of him wanted to stop, to go back, to stay with Reese until the end, but that was emotion. Emotion got you killed. Training kept you alive. And his training said run, so he ran. Japanese fire intensified. They knew he was withdrawing, knew he was vulnerable. Every gun that could angle toward him opened up. Rodriguez zigzagged, changing direction every 5 steps, making himself a difficult, moving, unpredictable target. 30 yards from American lines. 25. 20. He could see soldiers from his platoon waving him forward, shouting encouragement he couldn't hear over the gunfire. 15 yards. 10. A bullet hit the ground directly in front of him. He jumped over the fresh crater and kept running. 5 yards. Hands grabbed him, pulled him down behind cover, behind the pile of rubble where his platoon had been pinned down for over an hour, where the entire assault had begun. He collapsed, gasping for air. His lungs burned, his legs trembled, his hands shook so badly he could hardly hold the BAR. Someone was asking him questions, the platoon leader, asking about Reese, the station, enemy strength. Rodriguez couldn't answer. He just shook his head and pointed back toward the station. At the bodies around the building, at the silent machine gun positions, the unmanned cannons, the abandoned pillboxes. The platoon leader understood. He gave the order. The platoon arose, fixed bayonets, and charged across the open field toward the Paco railroad station. This time the Japanese did not stop them. No devastating machine gun fire, no 20mm explosions, no coordinated defense. Rodriguez and Reese had broken the defensive line, killed the gun crews, scattered the defenders, and shattered their command structure.
The Japanese who remained were isolated, confused, unable to coordinate their fire. Company B took the station in under 10 minutes. The Japanese fought room to room, floor to floor, but the outcome was inevitable. By 10:30 a.m., the Paco railroad station belonged to the United States Army. The strong point that had stopped 2 previous assaults had fallen. The road to southern Manila was open. Rodriguez watched from the American lines as medics brought Reese's body back. They carried him carefully, respectfully, and laid him down away from the other casualties. Someone covered him with a poncho. Rodriguez wanted to go to him, to say something, to apologize for leaving, but he couldn't move. His body had finally given out. The adrenaline was gone, the fear was gone. Everything was gone, except exhaustion. A medic checked him for wounds, found none. Just exhaustion, dehydration, shock. The medic handed him a canteen. Rodriguez drank. The water tasted like metal. He drank anyway, emptied it, handed it back, closed his eyes. He had been in combat for 2.5 hours, from 8:42 a.m. when he first ran toward that house until 11:12 a.m. when he collapsed behind American lines. 2.5 hours, 150 minutes, 9,000 seconds. It felt like a lifetime. Later they would count the bodies. 82 confirmed Japanese dead, directly attributable to Rodriguez and Reese.
More than 40 killed by rifle fire, more than 30 by grenades and close combat. Every kill verified, every action documented. 2 riflemen had destroyed more than a quarter of the station's defenders. 2 men against 300. The math should not have worked, yet it did. Rodriguez would not speak about the battle for 3 days, would not eat, would not sleep properly. He kept seeing Reese fall, kept seeing that final look, kept hearing the single rifle shot that ended his partner's life, kept feeling the weight of the decision to leave him behind. On February 11th, 2 days after Paco Station, Rodriguez's company attacked another fortified position, the Philippine Legislative Building. Well defended, heavy casualties expected. Rodriguez volunteered for the assault team. No one questioned why. They understood. He wasn't trying to be a hero. He was trying to finish what he and Reese had started. The building was massive, stone, built in the 1930s. Now it housed 3 companies of Japanese Marines who had turned it into a fortress even stronger than Paco Station. Company B had tried to take it once. 43 casualties, 17 dead, 26 wounded. Machine guns covered every entrance. Snipers occupied the upper floors. Artillery spotters on the roof called in mortar fire. Every conventional approach was suicide. But Rodriguez wasn't thinking conventionally anymore. Paco Station had taught him, get close, get inside their decision cycle, strike before they react. He saw a weakness, a partially collapsed wall on the southeast corner. The rubble formed a climbable slope leading to a ground floor window that appeared unmanned. If he reached the window, he could enter behind the Japanese lines. The platoon leader asked for volunteers. Rodriguez stepped forward. 3 others joined him. Their mission? Infiltrate, create chaos, pull Japanese attention away from the main entrance, and open a gap for the rest of the company. They moved at 0600, February 11th. Rodriguez went first. He sprinted across open ground under rifle fire, reached the rubble, climbed. A Japanese grenade landed 3 feet away. He kicked it back. It detonated mid-air. Shrapnel tore across his face, cutting his left cheek below the eye. Blood poured down his neck. He ignored it and kept climbing. He reached the window, dropped inside, and found himself in a dusty storage room, boxes stacked against the walls, and 4 Japanese soldiers 20 feet away manning a machine gun aimed at the main entrance. They hadn't heard him. The grenade blast had masked his entry. Rodriguez raised his BAR. The soldiers turned. Too late. He fired full automatic. 20 rounds in 4 seconds. All 4 Marines fell. The machine gun went silent. Rodriguez dropped the empty magazine, loaded a fresh one, and pushed deeper into the building. The other American soldiers were climbing in behind him. He didn't wait. He was moving on instinct, pure aggression. The same focused violence that had driven him at Paco Station. Find the enemy, kill the enemy, keep moving. He turned a corner and entered a 30-foot hallway with 3 doors. Japanese voices came from behind the second, 6 or 7 men, talking casually. They had no idea an American was 15 feet away. Rodriguez pulled his last grenade, yanked the pin, kicked the door open, threw it inside, slammed the door shut, and pressed himself against the wall. The explosion thumped through the floor. He waited 3 seconds, kicked the door open again, and stepped in with his BAR raised. 6 Japanese soldiers lay dead or dying in the room. Rodriguez checked each one, making sure they were no longer a threat, then moved to the next room. The building had dozens of rooms, dozens of defensive positions. Each one had to be cleared. Each one might contain Japanese soldiers ready to kill him. The fighting inside the legislative building lasted for 4 hours, room by room, floor by floor. Rodriguez and his 3-man team worked their way through the southeast section while the rest of Company B attacked through the main entrance. The Japanese defense collapsed under the 2-front assault. By 1000 hours, the building was secure. Over 60 Japanese Marines lay dead inside. Rodriguez personally accounted for 10 of them. 6 in the initial assault and 4 more during the room clearing operations. After the building fell, the medic finally got a look at Rodriguez's face wound. Grenade fragments had torn through his left cheek. The injury was painful but not life-threatening. The medic cleaned it, applied sulfa powder, wrapped it with gauze, and told Rodriguez he needed to evacuate to a field hospital for proper treatment. Rodriguez refused. He said he would get treatment after the battle was over, after Manila was secured, after the job was finished. The company commander heard about Rodriguez's actions at both Paco Station and the legislative building. He recommended Rodriguez for the Medal of Honor. The recommendation included detailed after-action reports, witness statements from other soldiers, and body counts verified by multiple sources. The paperwork moved up the chain of command, division, corps, army, eventually reaching Washington. On October 12, 1945, President Harry Truman presented Private Cleto Rodriguez with the Congressional Medal of Honor on the White House lawn.
Rodriguez stood at attention in his dress uniform. The bandage was gone from his face, but the scar remained, and would remain for the rest of his life. Private First Class John Reese received his Medal of Honor posthumously on October 19, 1945. His family traveled from Oklahoma to receive the award. His cousin, Betty Lamar, attended the ceremony. She later said that Rodriguez had told her what happened in those final moments at Paco Station, how Reese had provided covering fire, how he had drawn enemy attention away from Rodriguez, and how he had chosen to let Rodriguez withdraw first because Rodriguez had a family waiting back home. Reese was single, no wife, no children. He made the calculation: save the man who had people depending on him. Rodriguez was promoted to technical sergeant after the war. He became the first Mexican-American to receive the Medal of Honor in the Pacific Theater, and one of 6 Texans of Mexican descent to receive the award during World War II. He was the 5th person of Mexican ancestry ever to receive the nation's highest military honor. He returned to San Antonio in December 1945 to a hero's welcome. The city gave him a key to the city: parades, ceremonies, recognition. But Rodriguez did not feel like a hero. He felt like a survivor. Every time someone thanked him for his service, he thought about Reese, about the men from Company B who died taking Manila, about the 25 casualties from the first 2 assaults on Paco Station. Heroes were dead. Survivors just kept moving forward. Rodriguez left active duty in December 1945. He went to work for the Veterans Administration. He had dropped out of high school before the war. Now he used his GI Bill benefits to complete his education. He became passionate about helping other Hispanic Americans access education and training. He understood the barriers they faced: language, poverty, discrimination. He worked to break down those barriers, one veteran at a time. In 1952, Rodriguez rejoined the military, first with the United States Air Force. He served for 2 years, then transferred back to the Army in 1955. He deployed to Korea and later to Vietnam. He accumulated decorations beyond his Medal of Honor: a Silver Star for the Legislative Building Assault, a Bronze Star with Oak Leaf Cluster, a Purple Heart, the Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal with 2 campaign stars, and the Philippine Liberation Medal. He retired from the Army in 1970 as a Master Sergeant, with 26 years of total service. He had enlisted as a 19-year-old private with 0 combat experience. He retired as a senior non-commissioned officer who had served in 3 wars and trained hundreds of younger soldiers, passing on the lessons learned in places like Paco Station and the Legislative Building. Rodriguez married Flora Munez on November 11, 1945. They had 4 children: Cleto Jr., Betty, Mary, and Joe. He raised his family in San Antonio, worked, attended church, and lived a quiet life. He rarely spoke about the war. His children knew he had received the Medal of Honor, but he did not display it prominently. It stayed in a drawer with his other decorations, along with the memories he preferred not to revisit. In 1975, the San Antonio School District renamed an elementary school in his honor, the Cleto L. Rodriguez Montessori Elementary School. It was the only school in the district named after a former student. The school still operates today, teaching children who mostly do not know the story of the man whose name appears on their building. A section of U.S. Route 90 in San Antonio was designated the Cleto Rodriguez Freeway. A rifle range at Camp Perry, the Ohio National Guard training site, was named in his honor. Camp Perry hosts the National Rifle and Pistol Championships. Every year, thousands of competitive shooters use the Rodriguez range. Most do not know who Cleto Rodriguez was, do not know what he did in Manila, do not know about Paco Station or John Reese or the 2.5 hours that changed the course of a battle. On December 7, 1990, Cleto Rodriguez died in San Antonio. He was 67 years old. 45 years had passed since that morning at Paco Station. 45 years since he watched Reese fall. 45 years since he made the decision to run, to survive, to carry the weight of that survival for the rest of his life. He was buried at Fort Sam Houston National Cemetery in San Antonio, the final resting place of 11 other Medal of Honor recipients.
6 of them fellow World War II veterans. His grave marker lists his rank, his unit, and his Medal of Honor. But it does not tell the full story. It does not explain what it cost, what it meant, what it required. The Battle of Manila lasted 1 month, February 3rd to March 3rd, 1945. 100,000 civilians died, 16,000 Japanese soldiers, 1,000 American soldiers. The city was destroyed. 90% of the buildings damaged or demolished. It was the second most devastated Allied capital of World War II after Warsaw. Paco Railroad Station still stands today. It was partially demolished in 1996 by a developer who planned to build a shopping mall. The construction never happened, financial problems. The station remains abandoned. Graffiti covers the walls. Homeless people shelter in the ruins, but the bullet holes are still visible. The damage from grenades and machine gun fire, the scars from February 9, 1945, remain. In 2015, the Philippine Department of Transportation announced plans to restore the station. Heritage conservation groups supported the effort. The building represents a critical moment in Manila's history, a turning point in the liberation of the city. Restoration began, but progress has been slow. Funding issues, bureaucratic delays. The station remains partially ruined, waiting. John Reese is buried at Fort Gibson National Cemetery in Oklahoma, Section 2, Site 1259E. His grave marker identifies him as a Medal of Honor recipient, Private First Class, Company B, 148th Infantry Regiment. Killed in action, February 9, 1945. Age, 21. He has no living descendants, no children to carry his name, no grandchildren to tell his story. Just a grave marker, a citation, and the memory of what he did in Manila. The 37th Infantry Division suffered 352 casualties during the Battle of Manila. 45 killed, 307 wounded. The division earned 4 Medals of Honor during the month-long battle. Rodriguez and Reese at Paco Station, Private Joseph Cicchetti at the Manila Gasworks, and Private Willaban Bianchi at the Finance Building. All 4 actions occurred within 48 hours, February 9th through February 11th. 3 days that defined the division's contribution to the liberation of Manila. The story of Rodriguez and Reese demonstrates something fundamental about infantry combat. Numbers do not always determine outcomes. 300 Japanese Marines held Paco Station. They had superior defensive positions, heavy weapons, fortified emplacements, every tactical advantage. But 2 American riflemen with BARs and determination broke their defense. Not through superior firepower, not through better equipment, but through aggression, through refusing to accept that the numbers made victory impossible. Military historians study the Paco Station assault as an example of small unit tactics, how 2 soldiers operating independently achieved what multiple platoon-sized assaults could not. The key factors were initiative, surprise, and sustained pressure. Rodriguez and Reese did not ask permission. They identified a weakness and exploited it immediately. They established firing positions the Japanese had not anticipated, and they maintained continuous fire for 2.5 hours. The defenders never regained their balance, never re-established their defensive coordination. By the time Rodriguez withdrew, the station's defense had collapsed. But the human cost was real. Reese paid with his life. Rodriguez carried the psychological weight for 45 years. The face wound healed, but the internal wounds never fully closed. He had nightmares about Manila for decades, saw Reese fall in his dreams, heard that single rifle shot, made the decision to leave him behind over and over again.